Welcome back to Gaming Bliss as I tackle the third volume of Rare, Unique, and Hidden Gems on the PS4. Doing this work is like slaving over a hot stove, so do this Hungarian chef a favor and leave a tip in the form of a like or subscription, and I'll make a concerted effort not to spit in your food. Now, I won't make you wait any longer because I have 10 entrees that are sure to satiate your comfort food cravings. Let's get into it. Remember that Aerosmith album called Get a Grip? I wonder if they were referring to owning this game. If only I had a way to contact Steven to ask him directly. Hell, I'd even settle for Joe Perry if he answered, but since I'm a big fat nobody in the music scene, I'll have to put subliminal messages aside and give you my personal reasons to own this game instead. Speaking of subliminal, check out this fancy little treat they added. See what they did there? It's like I'm looking at the cover of the Princess Bride movie all over again. Anyway, let's look at my take on this fully endorsed title by Rock and Roll Hall of Famers. After that intro, you'd think I'd be all praise on this title, but I'm only somewhat replete to its offerings. I did like the Rocket League style physics and the ability to drive on your roof or your chassis, but wait, which side is up? While I was trying to figure that out, I did like the havoc of blasting a bot I raced against with the spread out weapon pickups throughout the levels, providing two different options at any given time to be aggressive with. The speeds are breakneck and a bit disorienting at times, but typically manageable. Despite the initial infatuation, I can see that over time this may lack the progression you would expect due to a confusing power-up menu and no complete vehicle upgrades for some time into the campaign. I was torn because I did have a pretty good time playing this, and I still think at the price it goes for, it's worth a pickup. I'll be giving this one a 6.5 out of 10. First, I'd like to say how indie this title looks just from the cover and how that caught my interest immediately for this list. I really like to bring you titles that are off the beaten path in one form or another. However, this one is on the beaten path of a puzzle platformer with personality. This, of course, is a limited run release and hard to find for less than $130, but I hear rumors of a reprint, so look for that if you're captivated by this one. I'll proceed to tell you what I think, and you can make your choice if you want to paint your HD television canvas with this one. Make no mistake, this game is artistically stunning and mood-setting as well. When I loaded this game and delved into its contents, I was whisked away to the resulting watercolor art I remembered from high school projects so many moons ago, which brings me to my point that this is more of an experience rather than offering a meaty challenge. I'll be honest though, when I say this element is a very important attribute to crest a game into that great category, and despite the lack of action here, the game holds you with its art style in a transcendent way. It may not be for everyone, and that's okay, but the tranquil and euphoric progression elevates this game to a 7.5 out of 10 for me. With only 999 copies of this one and coming in at around $150, I have number 221 and I feel honored to own it. Not only is this rare, but it is the second release from Strictly Limited Games, with Tokyo 42 being the first. In all honesty, this is the third time I've owned it because I sold my other two sealed versions when it pulled around $300 some time ago. Now I own the opened, fully playable, pixelated experience shmup, and I feel like a sword has narrowly missed both my ears. Now, I shall fight to the death and review for you, my ladies and gents. Another throwback to a time less traveled by today's standards. We have a moderately difficult game that does reward. Brazilian developers really put some heart into this one. That's 2 on my videos so far, and it resonates with me because I've been known to speak a little Portuguese myself. But back to the game. There are moments of humor, well-placed action, and bearded baby boys to give you something to fight for. Now, for the boss fights. They are executed very well and follow their own unique patterns to vanquish. I just wish the mobility of your bird was a little more forgiving because the movements at times can be very frustrating once you've learned the proper choreograph. Visually, I really like this art style, and I'll be giving this one a 7.5 out of 10. Another humble game that I'm also egocentric to bring you. This game exudes expression in the characters and quirky storyline. Gears for Breakfast keeps it fresh off the griddle and makes for a superb 3D platformer in N64 fashion. I'll admit I was skeptical going in, but once I entered, I didn't want to leave. I'll even go as far as to say I'd rather play this more than some of the better knowns like Banjo-Kazooie or Yooka-Laylee. Let's take a hop, skip, and a jump to the gameplay. Within 5 chapters of diverse worlds, there is plenty to explore here. There's also much creativity within the provided levels that nothing ever feels monotonous. The character you play as, although quiet with dialogue, is bursting with personality and gesturing, so it always speaks to her mindset. And sometimes her mindset's a little questionable, but that's where the humor comes in. I've always been picky with the camera work in these style games, so I was really paying attention to that, and it was as smooth as Chivas Regal Scotch. Not advocating drinking, but that's some good whiskey right there. For boss encounters, it was apparent that they'd upped their game literally for every new threat you came across. The game's approximate 8-hour playthrough isn't just level completion. There are time-ripped missions that are extremely fun as well. You know, I've worn many hats in my life, and when I put on my gamer hat, it's this type of game that titillates my gynecomastia. I don't have that problem, just saying for dramatic effect. I'll give this title an 8 out of 10. Not nearly limited as some of the prior entries, we have a mass-produced action meta-limited run game here with its narration reminiscent of games like Bastion. It has a cool coat applied to this visually pleasing 2D hack and slash. I found this one unique enough to include it in this third installment video. It's also nice when I can just hand it over to my 6-year-old without much concern due to the E10 Plus rating. Let's break the ice now and see what this title brings us. Endless dashing, frigid combos and finishers, oh my. It's like I finally got the sensation of a York peppermint patty right in my bedroom. I like games that reward you for enemy dispatching just as much as the next guy, so I was happy to see my health meter rise every time I took out hench robots who reminded me a bit of Mousers from TMNT. The cool thing about Icy is that following directions will get you to your goal until you don't, and then you'll see what Rebellion gets you. Hint, it's not always a bad thing when being defiant in this game. It was hard to take the narration seriously because it felt like it was handed to a first-year drama student in high school. I mean, is there some hidden meaning behind that choice that I'm not getting? Is the narrator Leroy Rogers secretly brilliant? Inquiring minds. Despite this minor hiccup, I had a blast playing this and appreciate its overall presentation. 8 out of 10. Made by a fairly known publisher, 505 Games, we have ourselves a fairly unknown game. I think I stumbled across this one on another person's hidden gem list. I must have then noticed how cheap it was and followed step 2 when I proceeded to purchase it from eBay. This method doesn't always pay off for me, but I can say that occasionally it will, and this one is one such occasion. Indivisible, with liberty and justice for... Oh, I'm sorry, are we not completing the Pledge of Allegiance here? On the contrary, we are referring to the different personas that occupy your protagonist's mind as you mentally JRPG power your way through these foes. I have to say that the structure during combat makes you think a step or two ahead, and your team's moveset is always unique and awesome. The cutscenes are similar to what you would see from games like Shantae, with a dose of wit and humor. All sounds great so far, right? And that's when we come to the second act, where trekking to the next boss is frustratingly annoying due to damage taken along the way, and bosses themselves, although unique to battle, will destroy you from a lack of defense while switching between platformer, real-time, and turn-based fighting. I don't know, it just doesn't feel cohesive and makes the overall journey dismal in nature. This game has a lot of potential, and it's not perfect, but it is distinctive and overall congenial to lovers of both the JRPG world and the 2D platformer genre. I give this a 7.5 out of 10. I think the bar has been raised yet again for artistic ingenuity with this isometric puzzler. Its heart is worn on its sleeve and very discernible with its vision. It utilizes ballpoint pen landscapes inspired by Japanese folk tales. Limited to 999 copies, it is reasonably priced around $25 to $30. It's a game that may not strike everyone's fancy, but it definitely stroked mine. I mean, it is a tale of love after all. Now, let's penetrate its mechanics ever so gently. You play as the Nameless Hero, a drawing that has set aside his sword and let the paintbrush prove mightier. As stated earlier, its progression is slow and deliberate, so it may not appeal to everyone, but if you appreciate its subtleness and attention to detail like changing the ink color to represent your environment and exercising some patience, this slowly builds to a brilliant cascade. The sound effects are an integral part of this game and match the tone quite nicely as well. Brian J. Olsen has the soothing voiceover skills needed to eclipse your average narrator and nail his parts. The game won't be breaking any records for content, so it's over moderately quickly, but still ends up fulfilling you in the end, and you realize that this Nameless Hero has made a name for himself. I'll give this one a 7.5 out of 10. Y'all know I'm attracted to art styles that emanate somber or dark themes, so I guess I felt right at home when traversing this shadow puzzler. It's not the first or the only one of its kind, and I'll prove that later with another title I own, but for now, I am digging the visual narrative that this provides. I recommend it for children maybe between 8 and up because of some of the dark themes within. So the question is, does the darkness shroud the allure? Let's shed some light on the matter. If I found myself in a waking dream, I wouldn't be too despondent to arriving in this surreal type of world. The atmosphere is a picturesque mishmash somewhere between the tamer versions of American McGee's Alice or Little Nightmares. It is very short with about a 2-hour playthrough, but ultimately satisfying and an easy trophy pickup. There's not much to say about this one because the visuals speak for themselves, but they do take on a life of their own and carry this one into the realm of a 7 out of 10. For a complete turnaround from the last few titles I mentioned, this game is action and combo heavy with a focus on beating the ever-living cartoon-like guts out of your opponents, which you can do in glorious 4-player couch co-op. It's a short game that comes in at around an hour and a half to complete, and I easily finished it with my son. The game is readily available and runs around $25 to $30, which may be a bit steep, but not beyond the realm of affordable. Let's see how crazy this really gets. You choose from 4 characters that all have their unique fighting styles. This one is a straight hoot and a holler from start to finish. Colors pop as do your enemies' bodies after you send them to the meat grinder for processing. There are scrolls to collect for upgrading your character and 500 combos to use between all 4 players. There are also super finisher moves, just in case you didn't kill them enough the first time, so I say bravo to the diversity of dispatchment. All playable 6 planets and bosses are animated extremely well, but it is hard to pay attention to everything going on at once unless you're a casual observer, and even then it's a mess. Thankfully, I didn't have any major slowdowns on my PS4 Pro, so the rhythm of the game kept a good cadence throughout. Altogether, I give this title a fun 7.5 out of 10 score. Lastly, I occasionally run across a game that blurs the line between difficult and fun, but when I do, I see it as a conquest. Kaze is one such title I run to for completion. Sodesco titles remind me of the poor man's humble games, but there are some like this that live up to the hype. At around $20, I feel the price matches the exuberance and duration of content here. But is it too harrowing for its own good? Let's proceed down the rabbit hole. Right away, I was flushed with the feeling of nostalgia from such games as Sonic the Hedgehog or Donkey Kong Country. Kaze is set in a gorgeous world with 29 masks that change your platforming experience when you obtain them. The game starts pretty simple but quickly rises to moderately distressing. I think the way it was orchestrated, however, really demanded try after try to get that dangling carrot just beyond the unseeable screen ahead. Maybe the worst parts were the auto-scrolling levels, but it doesn't affect my score much. I really had a great time inside this world, and it was everything I hoped for. I'll give this game an 8 out of 10. Well, there you go, 10 steaming entrees from the G1 Toys kitchen, and I do hope you thoroughly savored them. I will return with 10 more fun and unique titles from my PS4 Library of Wonders. Next time, I'll prepare a special treat for my faithful watchers that entails a game giveaway. All you have to do is recommend a favorite, rare, or unique title that I haven't played yet in my comments section, and if I use it in my next video, I will send you a free game from my collection, and a complimentary shout-out. Now, stay faithful and stay hungry for more PS4 cuisine, and I'll see you next time around. Cheers!